The trade station called Kepri's Reach smelled like recycled air, overheated metal, and too many species pretending not to notice one another. It hung at the edge of a busy corridor, a place where empires brushed shoulders without committing to eye contact. Eli Carter had learned that lesson early. Keep your head down, do your job, don't stare, and you'd survive another shift. He sat on a cargo crate near Dock 17, boots dangling over the edge, chewing slowly on the last decent sandwich he'd had all week. Synth meat, real bread shipped at criminal expense from Earth, and a smear of something pretending to be mustard. It wasn't special. It was familiar. That mattered more than he liked to admit. Eli was a logistics technician, which meant he moved boxes no one wanted to claim responsibility for. Humans didn't get glamorous postings in the galaxy. They got neutral stations, supply corridors, and the kind of work that kept civilization running without earning thanks. He didn't mind. Someone had to do it, and the pay covered rent and rations. Most days. The concourse in front of him was crowded with the usual chaos. Tall chitin-armored traders clicking irritably at delayed shipments, robed envoys flanked by silent guards, scavengers pretending to be merchants. Power walked openly here, but hunger hid in corners. Eli had learned to spot it the way sailors read weather. That was why he noticed her. She sat alone on a low bench near the bulkhead, small compared to most species passing by. Her frame was slight, almost fragile, wrapped in layered fabric that looked ceremonial but worn thin with age. The material shimmered faintly, not with the gaudy glow of status tech, but with something older, subtler. Her hands rested neatly in her lap. She wasn't begging. She wasn't moving at all. People avoided her. Not deliberately, not with hostility, but with the careful distance of beings who sensed something they didn't want to understand. A pair of dock hands detoured around her without comment. An armored guard paused, stiffened, and then kept walking. Eli frowned. That kind of reaction usually meant trouble, but she didn't look dangerous. She looked tired. She watched the crowd with eyes too calm for someone so alone. Eli took another bite of his sandwich, then hesitated. He followed his gaze and realized she was watching him. Not the food, him. Studying the way he ate, the way he chewed, the way he swallowed and sighed as if the act grounded him. That did it. He stood, dusted crumbs from his gloves, and walked over before he could talk himself out of it. Up close, she looked younger, almost adolescent by human standards, though something in her posture resisted that interpretation. Her face, smooth, pale, softly angled, carried an expression of polite neutrality that felt practiced. "Hey," Eli said, keeping his voice casual. You waiting on someone?" She blinked once.
Slowly. "No."
Her voice was quiet, precise, and carried an accent he didn't recognize. Not unusual. The galaxy had too many languages for that to mean much. "You look like you've been sitting a while," he said. He held up the sandwich, already half gone. "I've got more than I need." For the first time, her composure cracked. Just slightly. Her eyes flicked to the food, then back to his face, searching for something. Mockery, maybe. Transaction. Expectation. There was none. "You would give this to me?" she asked. Eli shrugged.
"Yeah."
"If you're hungry." "I did not request it." "I know." She seemed genuinely confused by that. He tore the sandwich cleanly in half, careful not to let anything spill, and held one portion out to her. The smell of bread and protein cut through the sterile air. Around them, no one intervened. No one even pretended not to watch. She accepted it with both hands, as if the object carried weight beyond its mass. Her fingers brushed his skin, cool and steady. Eli felt an odd shiver run up his arm, dismissed it, and stepped back to give her space. She examined the sandwich before taking a bite. When she did, it was careful, almost reverent. Her eyes closed for a fraction of a second.
"This is simple," she said.
"Earth specialty," Eli replied. "We're big on simple." She chewed thoughtfully. "On my world, food is a declaration. On mine, it's how you get through the day." Something shifted behind her eyes then, a depth that made Eli acutely aware of how little he knew about the being sitting in front of him. He sat beside her anyway, chewing his half in companionable silence. "Why are you here?" she asked after a moment. "Work," he said. "Boxes don't move themselves." "And you?" She looked back out at the concourse. Observation. "Yeah," Eli said, nodding. "That tracks." They ate without speaking. The station noise flowed around them, oblivious. When she finished, she folded the remaining wrapper carefully and held it as if unsure what to do next.
"Thank you," she said at last.
Eli smiled. "Anytime." A sharp intake of breath came from behind them. Eli turned to see the station overseer, a tall, rigid alien with authority stitched into every movement, standing a little too close. His eyes were fixed on the seated figure beside Eli, wide with something dangerously close to fear. "Sir," the overseer said to Eli, voice tight, "you need to step away."
"Now."
Eli glanced between them. "Is there a problem?" The seated figure looked up at the overseer, her expression unchanged. She said a single word, soft and measured. The overseer went pale. Eli stood slowly, unease creeping into his chest. As he backed away, she met his eyes one last time. The galaxy, he would later learn, had just taken notice of him. And he had no idea why. Eli Carter didn't sleep that night. The small quarters aboard Capri's Reach smelled of recycled air and stale metal, but the weight in his chest made the familiar discomfort almost comforting. He replayed the moment over and over, the way she had looked at him, calm, measured, like a judge noting every detail of a case he didn't know existed. And the way the station overseer had paled, as though her single word had cracked the walls of the universe. By morning, the station hummed with the usual energy, merchants haggling over freight, dockhands hauling containers with mechanical precision, and travelers who believed they were anonymous in the crush of bodies and ships. Eli felt anything but anonymous. He moved through the corridor with cautious steps, his mind circling back to the alien who had accepted his sandwich. Something about her presence unsettled him, a quiet gravity that drew attention without raising alarms. The overseer found him first. A figure in dark, structured robes, his eyes hidden behind reflective lenses, the alien stood like a sentinel at the docking bay entrance. "Eli Carter," he said, voice crisp, almost mechanical. "Accompany me. Now." Eli hesitated, swallowing hard. "Am I in trouble?" "Not for you," the overseer replied. "For the one you fed." His words carried an edge that didn't need further explanation. Eli swallowed again, realizing this wasn't a request. He followed the overseer down a narrow service corridor, past supply caches and maintenance rooms, until they arrived at a chamber he hadn't noticed before. It was small, sterile, and overlooked by a viewport that looked out onto the bustling docking area. Inside, she waited. The alien who had accepted his half sandwich sat on a raised platform, legs crossed, hands folded, radiating an authority he couldn't reconcile with her delicate appearance. Eli stopped just inside the doorway. She looked at him, calm as ever. "Sit," she said. The word carried weight, and the overseer's jaw tightened. Eli perched on a small bench across from her, hands resting on his knees. I don't understand," he said. "Why am I here?" "You offered kindness without expectation," she replied. Her voice was soft, yet it resonated in the chamber like an echo of something ancient. Few species act without self-interest. Fewer still act so simply. Eli blinked. I was just hungry and didn't want you to be." Her eyes narrowed, though not with suspicion. Curiosity, perhaps. "You understand little of the consequences of your actions." He frowned. "Consequences? It was just a sandwich." She tilted her head, studying him as if measuring the weight of his words. "To you, yes. To the galaxy, perhaps more than you realize." Eli swallowed, suddenly aware of the overseer's rigid stance at the edge of the room. Something about the alien's calm demeanor unnerved him. "I don't follow." "You will," she said. "But first, you must understand what it means to be observed." The overseer stepped forward. "Sir, we must." "No," she interrupted, voice sharp and precise. The authority in that single word caused even the overseer to hesitate. Leave us. Eli's pulse quickened. Leave me? What is this? Am I in danger?
No, she said.
But knowledge of your species is now under review. And you, human, have become a factor in that review. Eli's stomach tightened. A factor? I didn't do anything important. I just shared food. Which is precisely why you are important, she replied. Her gaze softened briefly, but only just. Your species demonstrates a quality often absent in the galaxy. You act without expectation of gain. You give freely. That is noteworthy. Eli swallowed, his hands tightening into fists. Noteworthy? You mean people notice me now? Her eyes held his. I notice. The overseer notices. And others will notice in time. The galaxy observes patterns, behaviors, and choices. Yours is anomalous. Eli shook his head. I don't even know your name. Who are you? Why does anyone care about me feeding you a sandwich? She inclined her head slightly. I am irrelevant for your understanding. But for context, know that power in the galaxy is measured in fleets, resources, and influence. You have unknowingly affected the balance. The overseer, now standing just outside the platform, swallowed audibly. Sir, we must proceed carefully. Disclosure. Not now, she said. He is not to be harmed. He is to be informed cautiously. Her gaze returned to Eli. You may yet be ignorant, but you are not naive. Eli exhaled shakily. I still don't understand. You will, she said. Observe carefully. Speak truthfully. The galaxy is watching the consequences of your simple action. And remember, even small gestures can ripple outward in ways you cannot yet perceive. He felt the weight of her words, heavy and strange, like gravity pulling him toward an invisible center. He wanted to stand, run, escape the enormity of the moment, but his feet remained planted. Is this some test? He asked. Her lips curved faintly, almost imperceptibly. Perhaps. But tests are not always recognized at the time. You will discover the nature of this observation later. Eli's throat went dry. Later? Yes, she said. Later, you will understand what it means that a human chose to act without expectation in a galaxy that measures everything by gain. The overseer cleared his throat, a nervous sound that echoed across the chamber. Sir, we must conclude this session. She looked at him one last time, eyes heavy with calculation. Remember the sandwich, she said. It will remind you that small actions carry weight, and that even the simplest human behavior can alter destinies. Eli blinked. The sandwich. Yes, she said softly. Your gesture is a beacon. Observe it, remember it, and act accordingly. The overseer moved forward. Eli followed mechanically, still grappling with the surreal conversation. Outside, the docking bay hummed with life, oblivious to the subtle shift in balance that had just occurred. As he walked away, he cast a glance back at her. She watched him with the same calm intensity, the same quiet authority. He realized something profound. He had touched the edge of a galaxy-wide power, and he had no idea what to do next. The weight of observation pressed down on him, a silent reminder that even ordinary actions, like sharing a sandwich, could reverberate far beyond intention. And in that quiet, unsettling knowledge, Eli felt the first stirrings of a change that would alter not just his life, but humanity's place in the galaxy. The station continued to buzz around him, indifferent to the moment that had just passed, and yet nothing would ever be the same. Eli Carter had never felt smaller in his life. The holding chamber aboard Capri's Reach was no larger than a storage locker, but the weight of anticipation made it feel like a cathedral. The metallic walls hummed softly with recycled air, and he sat on a cold bench, hands fidgeting with the cuffs of his uniform. Outside, a dozen armored guards, all male, paced silently, their postures rigid, eyes scanning every corner of the station. He had been told nothing. No explanations. Only that the one he had fed, a seemingly frail alien, required his presence. Eli's stomach churned. He had shared a sandwich out of habit, out of human decency, not realizing that the galaxy's rulers measured small acts with scales heavier than starships. The chamber doors slid open without a sound, and the overseer appeared, his lens-like eyes reflecting Eli's own anxiety. "You are to attend the council," he said. Immediately. Eli's eyebrows shot up. "Council? What council? I'm not. Look, I'm just a—" "Your presence is requested," the overseer interrupted. "No further questions." Before he could protest, the doors slid open wider. Beyond, the vast atrium of the Galactic Council sprawled like a frozen sea of authority. The ceiling was a lattice of light, showing countless constellations from distant quadrants. Male delegates from countless species stood behind polished consoles, murmuring among themselves in languages Eli couldn't comprehend. Each face carried the weight of empires, of fleets, of economies spanning light years. And yet, all attention shifted to him the moment he stepped inside. At the center of the chamber, seated on a raised dais, was the alien he had fed. She was no longer small. Somehow, the frail figure of yesterday radiated presence that seemed to bend the light around her. Her eyes, ancient, knowing, precise, locked onto him with an intensity that made his knees threaten mutiny. The murmurs fell silent. The delegates straightened, hands resting on consoles, eyes wide with awe, fear, and something Eli couldn't name. "You." Her voice rang clear across the hall. "Human Eli Carter." Eli swallowed hard. "Why, yes." "You offered sustenance without expectation," she said. A gesture of empathy in a galaxy that has long forgotten the meaning of the word. One of the council delegates, a towering alien with segmented limbs and a jawless visage, spoke first. "Sovereign, forgive the intrusion, but he is inconsequential." "Why is he here?" The alien, her true form revealed now as a ruler of unimaginable influence, ignored the question. "This human demonstrates qualities rare among your species. I have observed countless worlds, countless civilizations. Few act without selfish intent. This one did." Eli felt his face heat. It was just a sandwich. I didn't." "You gave freely," she interrupted, "without coercion, without calculation, without expectation. That is why the council observes." The delegates exchanged glances, some whispering urgently. A ripple of tension passed through the hall. Fleet movements paused in distant systems. Trade negotiations were temporarily suspended. The galaxy itself seemed to lean forward, waiting for the consequences of a human's quiet act. Eli's voice trembled. "So, I'm important now? Because I fed someone?" "Important is insufficient," she said. "You are a signal. Humanity, previously considered insignificant, has demonstrated a trait that cannot be measured in resources or fleets. Your species possesses an element absent in most civilizations: uncalculated empathy." The segmented-limbed delegate hissed through his vocal membranes. "Sovereign, with respect, you cannot elevate a single individual above entire nations. It is unprecedented." "Exactly," she replied, her tone calm yet authoritative. "Precedent is irrelevant when observation dictates consequence. This human, by choosing kindness without expectation, has altered our perception. The Council will recalibrate its evaluation of humanity based on this act alone." Eli's mind spun. "Recalibrate how? I'm just me. I don't know how to." "You will learn," she said, eyes narrowing slightly, though not unkindly. "The galaxy measures power, wealth, and influence. You measure character. The weight of your choice is heavier than any fleet. Remember that." A male envoy stepped forward, voice shaking with a mixture of fear and incredulity. "Sovereign, are you suggesting that an entire species status can be shifted by a sandwich?" "Not the sandwich," she corrected, "the act. The decision. The willingness to offer without calculation. It is the first sign of a civilization capable of unpredictability, creativity, and courage in ways the Council cannot quantify. That is why this human matters." Eli swallowed hard, realizing the absurdity of it all. A sandwich, half of his mundane lunch, had carried him from anonymity to the attention of the most powerful beings in existence. And yet, staring at her, he understood that the absurdity did not diminish the truth. The council fell silent again. Even the hum of distant stations seemed muted in the weight of her presence. Eli felt the enormity pressing down, a gravity born not of size or strength, but of attention, influence, and consequence. "You," she said, turning her gaze fully on him, "will not be harmed. Your actions have earned observation, not punishment. And through observation, you will learn the influence of humanity in a galaxy that once ignored it." Eli's hands trembled slightly. I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just did what felt right. That," she said, her voice like a bell tolling through the chamber, "is extraordinary enough." For the first time, Eli understood the core of what she had been communicating all along. The galaxy had underestimated humans not for their weakness, but for their capacity to act with decency when no one was watching. And he, a single human male with nothing more than a sandwich and a willingness to share, had shifted that perception. The chamber doors opened behind him, signaling the end of the session. Delegates began murmuring, recalculating, some even nodding toward him in newfound consideration. Eli stood, still unsteady, glancing at the sovereign one last time. "Remember," she said, her voice carrying across the hall like a quiet command, "small actions echo further than the greatest fleets. Do not forget what you have begun." Eli nodded, though he barely understood the magnitude. As he stepped toward the exit, escorted by the overseer, he felt the first stirring of something profound. The galaxy had noticed humanity, and by extension it had noticed him. For all his mundane days, his boxes, and his recycled air sandwiches, Eli realized that one small gesture had carried consequences no one, not even him, could have predicted. And somewhere deep inside, he understood that nothing would ever be the same again. Months had passed since Eli Carter's ordinary gesture had rippled through the galaxy. Capri's Reach felt different now, though the corridors were still lined with the same metallic walls and the same recycled air hummed in the background. Yet the change wasn't in the station, it was in the way humans moved through it. Traders nodded with a little more respect. Dockhands paused longer when passing a human. Whispers followed Eli in the hallways, though he did his best to ignore them. He had returned to his routine, moving boxes and monitoring shipments, but he carried a weight far heavier than any cargo crate. The memory of her eyes, the alien sovereign who had accepted his sandwich, haunted him not with fear, but with awe. The galaxy had shifted, and he, unknowingly, had been the catalyst. Then came the summons. Not urgent, not threatening, but formal. Eli stepped into the observation chamber, now familiar in its sterility. Outside, armed male guards gave him space, maintaining their stoic vigilance. She was there, seated at the raised dais, her presence no less commanding than the first time he had seen her. But now, there was warmth behind her gaze, tempered with the calculation of one who had watched civilizations rise and fall. "You return," she said simply. "Yes," Eli replied, hesitant. I've been trying to understand what happened." "Understanding comes with observation," she said. "You have done well to remain yourself, despite the attention you've received. That is rare." The overseer, standing behind Eli, cleared his throat. "Sovereign, the diplomatic recalibrations are complete. Humanity's status has been elevated. Trade rights have been secured, and several fleets have been reassigned to ensure safe passage for human vessels." Eli blinked. "Wait, fleets? Reassigned? I didn't even know my species existed in anyone's calculations." "Exactly," she replied. "And yet they do. The galaxy is learning to notice what you humans have always done. Act with integrity, without expectation, even in the smallest gestures." For the first time, Eli allowed himself a faint smile. The sandwich. It had started with a sandwich. A simple choice. A simple act of decency. And now, here he was, witnessing the tangible effects of human empathy in a galaxy that had long valued conquest over compassion. She leaned forward slightly. Empires are built with fleets and weapons, yes, but civilizations endure through values. Your species has demonstrated resilience, creativity, and moral fortitude in ways most others cannot comprehend. That is why you are now recognized. Eli felt a strange mix of pride and disbelief. So, humanity matters because of, well, human decency? Her lips curved into a hint of a smile.
Yes.
Because even in a galaxy obsessed with power, those who act without coercion are unpredictable. That unpredictability is valuable. That kindness is powerful. He swallowed. And me. You are an example, she said. Not the first human to act this way, nor the last. But your action has been a signal. A reminder that even small gestures can carry the weight of worlds. That is why you remain here, observed and unthreatened. Eli nodded slowly, absorbing the gravity of her words. He had never considered that a lunch, a moment of human decency, could influence fleets, trade policies, or galactic perception. And yet, he now understood that this was the nature of influence that no weapon could measure. Quiet, enduring, human. The overseer shifted, clearing his throat again. Sovereign, if I may, his presence continues to inspire confidence among those who interact with humans. Trust is being recalibrated across several sectors. She gave a subtle nod.
Yes.
Trust is built through demonstration, not decree. Let humanity continue to demonstrate what it is capable of, and observe how the galaxy responds. Eli stepped back, finally realizing the full scale of what had happened. He had been an ordinary human male offering a simple sandwich, unaware of the galaxy's observation. And in doing so, he had sparked a transformation that went beyond diplomacy or politics. It was cultural, ethical, even moral. Thank you, he said softly, for noticing, for giving humanity a chance. Her eyes softened, though the depth of her experience remained vast and unknowable. You need only continue being human, she said. The galaxy will notice, as it must. And when you falter, it will remember this moment, this choice. Eli exhaled, a quiet relief washing over him. He felt lighter, grounded, yet aware of the responsibility he now carried, one that was not a burden in the traditional sense, but an acknowledgement that ordinary actions could echo far beyond intention. Outside, the station hummed with life. Humans moved through the corridors, no longer unnoticed. Merchants greeted them with tentative respect. Traders deferred for a moment longer. Even the smallest human gestures, shared meals, offered help, honest conversation, were now observed, measured, and valued. Eli returned to his workbench, resuming his routine with newfound clarity. The boxes he moved were no longer mundane containers. They were symbols of connection, of human reliability, and of the quiet strength that defined his species. He carried sandwiches in his bag, knowing that even the simplest gesture could ripple outward, changing perceptions and shaping futures. The sovereign's voice echoed softly in his memory. Even small actions carry weight. He smiled, tearing open another sandwich, ready to continue in the way humans had always done, simply, honestly, and without expectation. The galaxy had taken notice, not because of grand declarations or displays of power, but because one human had acted with decency, a simple act that proved extraordinary in a universe accustomed to calculating everything. And in that quiet, unassuming way, Eli Carter understood the truth. Empires might rise and fall, weapons might rust, fleets might be reassigned, but human kindness, when genuine, endured. It shaped perception, influenced decisions, and reminded the galaxy that the smallest, most ordinary acts could have the power to redefine worlds. The galaxy, for all its enormity and complexity, now watched humanity, not with fear, not with suspicion, but with respect. And Eli, still just a human male with a sandwich in hand, walked forward with a quiet satisfaction of knowing that sometimes the simplest choices carried the heaviest weight. The story of a sandwich had become the story of humanity, and the galaxy would never forget.